Hi Chris, how are you?
Yeah, good afternoon, Rod. I'm well. And we're on the sunniest day of the year, I reckon, thus far. Here in England, I assume that Wales is equally as sunny.
It's pretty nice. I was talking to my parents last night. They're on the west coast of Scotland, and the ferries were risk being off yesterday, so we're definitely having better weather than the north.
Is that right? Wow, okay. It's beautiful here today, so I'm enjoying it. And people may hear a lawnmower in the background as lots of people are mowing their lawns, as that's the done thing in this country, I think. It's spring, must cut the grass.
Yeah, and the clocks went forward an hour today, so not that you can tell on a podcast, but that was definitely a factor this morning.
It is definitely a factor. It was a bit sleepy in my house.
We better say what number we're on and what the date is then.
So it's episode 166. It's the 30th of March, 2025. And should we dive straight into follow-up?
Let's dive straight into follow-up. So first story that we're following up on, and this may come as a surprise to absolutely no one based on what we've been covering recently, is that apparently, according to Ars Technica, the EU will go easy with Apple Facebook to avoid invoking Trump's wrath. What do we think of this?
Yeah, no, that is interesting. EU to go easy. Why do you think they're going to go easy?
I think all this tariff stuff has probably got them slightly spooked, in the sense that, 25% on cars we saw this time. We saw the way he's playing fairly hardball with Canada. To be fair to Canada, they're playing hardball back again. So I just think they're just trying to sort of pacify him a little bit. They've also been hit with the 25% on cars.
But Trump's not going easy.
Well, he's not, is he?
He's getting everything he wants, isn't he? And we're going to go easy on him. I don't know.
I don't know that he is getting everything that he wants. I mean, I don't think the EU should kowtow to this particular thing because it's bullying.
Yeah, that is it, isn't it? It is just bullying.
And Apple, and we've got an Apple story later on about the browser choice screen, and Facebook, and Google, and Microsoft have taken absolute advantage of the UK, the EU, and had that dominant market position. And I'm glad that an organisation is taking them to task on this, however unfair it may feel to the US companies that are involved in this. And, I'm sure he takes it personally as the president, but this doesn't feel right to me. I think they should be fined as they were planning to do so.
I would concur with that statement. I think they should have just been fined as they were going to do anyway. Why does it matter that their head of state is changed and is being Trump? I guess that's the thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, this is going to hurt Americans as much as people in the EU. That once these reciprocal tariffs are applied, that they'll pay more for their cars, they'll pay more for their parts, they'll pay more for whiskey from the UK or cheese from France or whatever else it is that's being imported into the UK. And it's not the government that's going to benefit from a tariff, it's either the companies doing the importing, and ultimately that cost gets passed on to the end user. So,
yeah, I agree. The end user is the one that's going to hurt here. And that is the problem, isn't it? People buying cars. And I can understand some of what he's doing, but I'm not liking most of what he's doing, I must confess.
No, I think that's fair. Something else that EU users may like, however, is that you can now set, should you choose to in the EU marketplaces, you can set Google Maps as your default navigation app. I think that's pretty good if you're all in the Google ecosystem.
No, I think that is good. Look, as much as I am not, I think, sorry, I was just loading up the default app screen while we were talking. I think that is the right thing. Obviously, we here in the UK can't do that, but because we're not in the EU. But I do think that's the right thing. And I did see something this week that says you can now make WhatsApp your default calling app as well. So this is right, isn't it? Like, Apple, make the best apps and people won't want to change them. But if people do want to change them, give them the option. So this has got to be the right thing to do. And it's great that it's happening, but just do it everywhere. I'm fed up of these segmented differences.
I agree, and it set me thinking, actually. We're going to talk about open source operating systems, as we often do in this podcast, but wouldn't it be nice if we could choose OpenStreetMap if they have a mapping thing? So if you didn't want to support one of the big Google, Apple, the sort of big mapping companies, if you did want to support on a more open source effort, if you could set that to be your default app.
I guess you will be able to if they allow it, but I guess OpenStreetMap need to do something and then Apple need to bless it.
Well, I don't even know. I mean, I think a lot of driving directions, particularly, which, let's face it, driving and walking directions is mostly what we use these apps for. Well, I do. I guess if you're in a city and you're trying to work out where to eat, that's another use case as well, or where to visit. But just as a purely driving thing or a walking thing, OpenStreetMap has the same information pretty much as one of the other big mapping things, but you need some sort of algorithm to be applied to the map in order to work out the best. It's not as the crow flies, it's taking account of one-way streets and traffic and yada, 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 yada. But that's beside the point. You should be able to set whatever you want to be the default app, be it calling, be it maps, be it texting, be it whatever, email, as whatever you want.
Yeah, no, I would concur. I would concur with that statement. But I reckon that probably is on OpenStreetMap to let, to submit it to Apple, and I guess Apple then to allow it to be done. I'm sorry, just trying to think it through as you were talking.
No, I think it's fair. It's just I think we agree on the same thing, which is it's my device. I bought it. I should be able to set whatever I choose to be the default app to beat it.
Yeah, I would very much agree with that. It should be whatever you want it to be. But how long have we had the iPhone now? 2007. What are we now? 18 years in, and we can only just set some default apps, and more if you live in the EU. So it's taken a lot longer than anybody had expected, even longer than copy and paste.
Yeah, copy and paste took long enough, and we still don't have a clipboard app, don't we? We don't have a universal clipboard, which it annoys me every single day.
You want to use your iOS device to do most of your job on, and not have that.
Next story, and this is follow up on our LLM pieces, is that Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft, is setting DeepSeek to be the new bar for Microsoft's AI success. I think these companies were quite shaken up by DeepSeek at heart.
I think so. I think it came out of left field. This one's a nightmare to try and read for anybody that doesn't have a Verge subscription, by the way. So it feels like DeepSeek's come out of left field, as it were, taken them all by surprise. I also think Microsoft maybe got too in bed with OpenAI. It feels like they really bet on one horse. And if you're not in full control of that horse, what happens if you don't like the direction they go in? And I think that Microsoft have come a little bit unstuck, which is a bit frustrating. So it does feel like DeepSeek has caught them. But you should be, such a fast-moving world, you should be hedging your bets. Kind of like Microsoft did when they wrote Windows. They made it work on not just one chip. They wrote it to work on lots of different chips and architectures. So they do need to back multiple horses, I think, especially right now. So it makes sense.
Well, this is where all the innovation is at the moment, isn't it, in computing? It's in software and it's in large language models and it's training them and the quantization and all the rest of it that goes into the generation of these large language models. And it has been interesting seeing Apple actually make a computer that are able to run the biggest of these models. You can run DeepSeek in its biggest thing because if you buy a Mac Studio with 512 gigs of RAM, you can actually keep it in memory while it does it. So, all right, it's a £5,000/$ computer, but that's a damn sight cheaper than banging some server full of NVIDIA H100s at $20,000 a pop or whatever they are. So, there is the facility to do this, and obviously Microsoft have data centers. This isn't an issue for them. But if you're a developer writing an LLM, you can only make use of the hardware and the software that you've got. So DeepSeek is interesting to resource-constrained people.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And what is impressive, I think, with the Mac, I was going to say Mac Ultra, it's not the Mac Ultra, it's the Mac Studio with the Ultra chip. What's impressive with that is whilst it is £5,000, it's actually available to anybody to go out and buy. You haven't got to build anything. It is off the shelf in essence. So it is quite cool. So that it's that readily available. I get most people won't want 512 gig of RAM, but it's just there, isn't it? It's just available for somebody to consume should they want to have it.
Should they want to have it. And I can hear the lawnmowers, Chris, so I'm sure the listeners are going to have a delight this week.
I do apologise. They've just stopped. So hopefully we'll be good for the rest of the recording.
We shall see. Moving on, and in AI-related news, you're a Garmin user, are you, when you go out for a run?
So at the moment I've been running on my treadmill. I haven't been outside with it, but I did buy a Garmin, and I largely bought a Garmin because I just wanted a watch for running, and I thought, their brand awareness that the Garmin have done, I think has been fantastic. I nearly bought an Apple Watch, the cheap one. I say cheap, they're 300 quid. But I bought a Garmin for about £100. It's fantastic.
Now they're going to offer a AI-based subscription to as well, so it's not just the device anymore. They want you to buy an ongoing thing. I don't know if Garmin already had some sort of subscription-based model for their devices, or was it buy once and forget?
For me, I've literally bought one of their cheapest devices. I just wanted something just to track my run. I didn't want it to be, it's not a watch I wear other than when I'm running. So I bought very cheap. And to be fair to Garmin, they have not pushed anything down my throat when I open their apps. Just kind of works. They didn't even push down my throat. This is how you link it to Apple Health, which was the one setting. It took me a long time to find. So I wasn't impressed with that piece, but the rest of it's been fantastic. I quite like Garmin as a company, and their build quality is very good. But this makes sense. Everybody's doing something in the AI space. I'm not surprised they're going to offer you a subscription.
I'd be interested to see what you get out of this. I mean, the article says you're going to get personalized insights and suggestions. What does that mean?
It seems not a lot for $70. I mean, if somebody wants me to give them some personalised insights, send me your data and I'll read it and tell you for £7 a month what I think. But it seems quite a lot of money for it. But it's going to be interesting to see what that's going to do. Maybe it's going to help you, if you're at the peak of your game, it's going to help you get even further, by going, you need to cool down longer between runs, or, you need to plow through at this point, or you should have lifted off here. I guess it does that sort of analysis for you. I don't know.
I guess we'll see. I mean, there is a link in the Verge article about showing Garmin Connect Plus and the kind of dashboard you get. And as they say, technically you should already have access to this data. I mean, I'm with you. If it could offer you hints if you're learning to run and you're taking too long between your sprints or your more active moments, cool down for a walk for 5 minutes or 50 seconds or whatever it is. This could personalize it more to what it's seeing based on your heart rate and all the rest of it, rather than just monolithic run for one, walk for one, run for one. That would probably be a little more useful, but I don't see why I should have to pay for that. Surely I've already spent a couple of £100 on a device and it should do that kind of stuff for me already.
Yeah, I'd have thought so, but everyone's trying to come up with a subscription, aren't they, to grow their revenue. For me, I just want to track my distance. How far have I run? That's what I really care about. I'm probably not the best use case for this.
Fair enough. A new use case for Steve Troughton-Smith, longtime Apple fan, developer of many good Apple apps, including Pastel and Broadcasts, appears to be completely changing and walking away from Apple. He's posted this week that he's buying some Google Pixel phones and has been talking about Google Pixel watches and doing all sorts of stuff like that recently. So I think there's a change afoot in the Apple development community.
Yeah, this is quite serious, isn't it? He's been a developer for a long period of time. He even offered his apps up for sale if anybody wanted to buy them. He's obviously walking away from that world, which is sad because he'd been in it for so long. Google Pixel's a good-looking phone, though.
Yeah, it's a great-looking phone, and I got to say, having an earlier version of this, I think I've got a 7 as my sort of Android tester phone. Well made as well, just as well put together as an iPhone. The software is definitely quite strong. The features you get on them are impressive, and it's interesting. Apple are going to be copying this command bar sort of view for the camera along the top, aren't they, for the iPhone Air? So,
It is mad that Apple are going to copy their layout. I find that absolutely bonkers, but it's going to be interesting to see how it goes and what they're going to fill it with. But the Google Pixels always looked a good phone.
I think they are a good phone. The always-on display thing, and I say this again and again, their notification system is better on Android, and I absolutely love the fact that they've got a database of what music is playing just in the background that sits on the lock screen of your phone. So if there's ambient music in the background, it tells you what's there without you having to go look for it. Now, I think Apple have a company that can do this, Shazam. So why aren't iPhones able to offer this?
I've never really worked out the Shazam acquisition because they've acquired Shazam, but it's always just they've never really done anything with it, and I don't really understand why. You spend a lot of money on it. It's great tech. Most people don't even realise they've got Shazam. I just don't understand why they've lowballed it so badly.
You could say the same of Beats. I know we're going to be talking about. Are we going to be talking about Beats? I can't remember if I included the story or not. Yeah. Shazam is an odd acquisition for Apple. I mean, they have an immense database of music, obviously, because they offer a streaming service. Did they need Shazam? Could they not have built something like this themselves?
Yeah,
but
Apple can't build it, though, can they? But why buy it and then not give it to the masses? Most of my family probably don't even know they've got Shazam on their phone.
Exactly, even though you can put lock screen widgets and things for it. Why doesn't it just sit there passively in the background listening, the same way that Google Pixel phones do?
I'm not sure if I'd want it passively listening all the time, but I think I'd want it. They should at least prompt you whether you want to do that.
Yeah, without it using a lot of battery, which the Pixels can do. Anyway, Steve has bought a pink phone here. I think it's a real shame because he's a credit to the community, Steve Troughton-Smith. He's an acute observer, obviously lives in Ireland, so has a slightly more EU view on things, which I think we probably tend towards as well. But I think this is a real loss. And if you're losing committed developers like this who have been, adding value to the Apple platform for such a long period of time based on your decisions of the last few years, this is a real problem. When you're trying to release hardware such as the Vision Pro, when you want updates to tvOS, when you want those, the apps make the platform. And as we keep seeing here, Apple themselves aren't really making apps to sell the platform anymore. It's what's already there. And, this is important.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think it's a shame. He's a good developer and he, like you say, had a good commentary, but it's a sign of the times, isn't it? Maybe
he'll just dip his toes and come back. We'll see. But interesting all the same. sticking with the EU a little bit, and this is how you get it right, Apple. You were ordered by the EU to offer a browser choice screen. You did it. It works. They're leaving you alone now. Just do that then.
People did complain about it. They had to make some tweaks, but yeah, they largely did do it. And it probably hasn't hurt their world that badly, I wouldn't imagine. I just wish they would open it up to the rest of the world. This is the problem now, I think. Just get it open to the rest of the world, and then you'll get less of these.
No, but what you said a minute ago is, if you offer them a choice, 99% of people will probably choose Safari or choose the built-in app anyway. So they have nothing to lose and everything to gain by giving the option of choice for those that really want it. And most people will continue to use Apple Pay or, make use of the internal app store rather than downloading a marketplace. I just think it's so short-sighted of them.
I completely agree. And then they can get forced to do it. Then they get legal people getting involved. And I don't understand it, why they're picking so many fights.
No, I don't get it either. Should we do some news?
Let's do some news.
So, first up, Windows 11 is closing yet another loophole. So this is only in the developer insider, I think they call it insider circle, don't they, in Windows developer land. There was a shortcut, a shortcut you could run called bypass NRO.command, which would remove the requirement for you to have to enter a Windows account when you set up Windows 11 for the first time. Anyway, in this insider build, Microsoft are getting rid of it. And this is just yet another way for them to force you to opt into all their, what can I say nicely, marketing of their operating system the first time you log into it.
Yeah, I don't like this. It is frustrating already because it's very hard to find the shortcut and run it. I don't like this. Why do I need an account? I just want to use my computer. But Microsoft are going to be Microsoft on this.
I hate this. We're doing this to enhance security and user experience. Anybody that knows enough to go and look for this command knows a bit about user security and how to treat their Windows machines because they know enough to go and find the command.
Yeah. It's bonkers, isn't it? Not even the iPhone makes you sign up for an iCloud account when you buy it.
It's so user hostile. And I was briefly running Windows again for a little bit. I thought I'd try some games on there. You have gaming PCs in the house. I'm going to use the word carefully, egregious, the amount of sign in now because you get OneCloud. Do you want to get an Office 365 subscription while you're here? What about Microsoft Xbox Live? You need to sign up for all these things as you're installing the operating system. It's appalling.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. It absolutely annoys me that they want me to sign into so much, especially my kids as well. It's like they're a child account. They're a child account. I've marked them as such. Just knock it off, Microsoft.
Yeah, I've seen elsewhere that there's an increase in LibreOffice, people downloading it because they're knocking up Office 365 subscriptions this month. It feels like perfect storms are beginning to arrive all over the place for Microsoft and Apple and Google and Facebook. That there is definitely a resistance to the path they're trying to lead us down in terms of Microsoft with Copilot, Microsoft with advertising, Apple with the way that they're treating people who make use of the App Store and not allowing choice. Meta, are being fined in the EU and beyond, although the Trump regime may have something to say against that. It's just, you feel like the worm is turning slightly.
Yeah, I completely agree with you here. The worm is turning.
Oh, does that make us the worms? I think it probably does. Back to AI news briefly, and this is a news story, which is why it's not in follow-up. And Apple's apparently donated $4 million to the Chinese app development, specifically to DeepSeek's hometown. So that's not only Microsoft paying attention to DeepSeek, it's Apple as well.
I'm not surprised. China's a big market for Apple. You've got to play both sides, haven't you? You need to play some at home. And I think we're going to see more of this, aren't we, over the coming months, years of, we are going to have localized tech in certain places because China want their own thing. Trump's going to want his own thing. So you are going to have these differences. So it makes sense. You've got to invest. And it's good in one way that they're going to invest around the world and not just in any one country. So hopefully it'll be a win in a way.
Yeah, and let's face it, Apple are in real trouble, I think, when it comes to LLMs and AI type stuff. They can do good things with photography. We've seen that over the years, but the abject failure of next generation Siri, the sort of fairly limited LLMs that we've got on the iPhone, having to withdraw advertising, even Gruber pushing back against it. Marcus Brownlee put out a video last night talking about how terrible the state of AI is on the iPhone and how it could be indicative of the beginning of the end of the company. I mean, he wasn't saying this as such, but his reasoning was that you start to see it with big companies. You can't think they'll be shifted from their position. You're a BlackBerry, you're an IBM, you're someone like that, and then an event comes along that you fail to respond to, and that could, in retrospect, that's the beginning of the end. And the suggestion isn't Apple's there yet, as we've already talked about. The Mac Studio is fairly dominant when it comes to programming these kind of things at home. But if you treat LLMs the way Apple have, and actually may have caused harm to your brand, the whole Apple Intelligence thing may be slightly tainted now with a bunch of consumers. This could be a problem for Apple, and I can understand why they'd want to invest in stuff like this to try and get back in the game.
Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? They've got to do something because they haven't got it right over the last 24 months. So they've got to come up with a new strategy for the next 24 months, if not longer.
And hand on heart, do you think that we're going to talk about WWDC in the main show? Do you think we're going to see a big change to this year's WWDC?
I don't think they've had enough time. Let's pick that up in the main show.
We'll talk about that in the main show. Moving on to a subject closer and closer to my heart as time passes on. I just thought it was fascinating. The United Nations endorsing the use of open source, of open information and communications technology, and just the list of organizations that the United Nations endorses to work with as part of this sort of initiative for open computing and open platforms. And as you look at some of the organizations here, European Open Source Academy, Matrix, which is an open chat, like a Slack or a Teams or something like that, but an open source version of that. Rocket Chat, another chat thing. Linux altogether in terms of the Linux Foundation, the Eclipse Foundation for development of code and all the rest of it. I think this is really fascinating that you've got a big worldwide organization absolutely putting their stamp on open source technologies.
It's good. It's got to be the right thing to do, hasn't it? And not very many, though, only 16, but I guess it's way better than 0.
Oh, well, they've joined the OSI, so I presume, there's more than that. It takes it from 17, but you've got to start with somewhere. And again, given American hegemony in technology, I think it's important that you begin to realize this. I mean, you've got some important things in here. Nextcloud are part of this, so you can run your own clouds on your own servers without being responsible to others. Linux and GNOME cover an awful lot of open source software. You can run quite a lot of what you would need to do from a computing point of view from having these platforms.
Yeah, that is true, actually. Whilst not many, as I've just said, but cover a broad spectrum of areas of tech. Like you say, you've got Office, you've got an operating system, you've got communication, collaboration. So it does look good.
It does look good. And in line with that, we've then got the EU beginning to look into having a Linux desktop for the European Union. From this article in The Verge, which was from the 25th of March, it's a bit locked down. It's got an immutable version of Linux. And for those that are aware, immutable is kind of like the way Apple manage macOS these days, where you have a lockdown version of the operating system, the disk that doesn't get written to until you get a software update. And then only at that point, during the upgrade process, can it be changed. So it stops a lot of malware, viruses and things like that actually infecting the operating system at a fairly low level. So these immutable distros, of which this is one, give you that extra security within things. So I think this is fascinating. The European Union are obviously reacting, we talked about Trump already, to changes in the world and how software may need to be managed going forward.
Doesn't it make sense, though, if you want to be, if you're going to be an organisation that should be impartial and you don't want to be locked down or locked out by a foreign country that you may or may not be, in a good place with. They may be your partner today, but they could be your enemy tomorrow. It kind of makes sense, I think. It's quite forward thinking. If you are going to do it, it's something you need to invest in early because it's not going to be ready on day one. It's going to take time to prepare it, make it work, roll it out, make sure it's secure, keep it maintained. So I think this kind of makes sense. And this is what we're seeing, aren't we? We've been through the internationalization phase of life, and it feels like now we're going back more to where we would have been 50 years ago, where you buy in country and you're supported in country. There's a lot more of that, isn't there?
Possibly, but I should have put this in the show notes. There's a Chinese initiative to do exactly the same thing. It's called Deepin. So Deepin Linux is an initiative of, certainly part of the Chinese government for a Linux-based desktop and operating system that is suitable within the military, government, whatever else needs to make use of it. That's actually endorsed by the state. And if the EU are doing the same thing and choosing Linux, then that open source ability to be in control of your own destiny and your applications and your programming environment and your server and everything is there. It does make sense not to standardize on that one thing that's controlled by a large corporation, and you actually have the ability to modify in a way that suits your region.
Yeah, no, I think it does make a lot of sense, doesn't it? I kind of get it, and like I say, it removes then your lock-in to a specific country providing you support or OS or vulnerability fixes, and I think it does make sense, and I can see more of this happening. Can you not?
Yeah. No, totally. It feels like the path at the moment, unless there's a drastic change in America, I think. And isn't it weird it's become like this? I was reflecting, we used to run quite a happy little podcast talking about cool gadgets and gizmos that came out of Apple and the occasional nice car or something. And we've become so political that it'd be quite nice to find the odd sort of good news story for something that's nice to talk about. Maybe we'll have a big effort to do that at some point.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We've definitely got more legal and political as the world, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a sign of the times, isn't it?
100%.
Tell us about Apple preparing a new, fantastic, innovative thing.
Yeah, Apple are bringing us some Beats cables. Moving on.
This is such a terrible story. It's such a terrible story, I think we had to feature it. It's not even they've released new Beats charging cables. They're preparing to release new Beats charging cables. Wow.
I kind of think the thing here surely is that it's very slow at the moment, is it not? It's a very slow month, and Apple will bring in some USB-C to USB-C with the Beats logo on it. They probably should have done this before because they've been very slow at bringing anything out, really. So I don't really understand why they've taken so long to use the Beats branding. I think they bought Beats because it was the streaming platform, and then they didn't really think about it I don't think they really had a plan for the headphones and everything else, and they've really struggled with it. And this makes a lot of sense. People like their branded stuff. Why aren't they challenging, in the Anchor space and stuff? They should be. They make good cables. Why not stick the Beats brand on it and have a rival brand for that? I think it's a good idea.
Of course, what we don't know is, do Anchor make the cables for Apple in the first place? These just could be braided Anchor cables.
Yeah, they could just be vanilla cables, but why wouldn't Apple have their own, branded ones? Because nobody really buys Apple cables third party, but they might be more inclined to buy Beats ones. I don't know. Why not? Do them in good colours. Get them out there.
I wouldn't have thought so. I mean, surely it comes in the box, or it's some generic no-name thing you've bought off Amazon or Argos or something.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of people just buy Amazon Basics because, to be fair to Amazon Basics, it's a rubbish name, but they make pretty good stuff.
Yeah, but you got to buy off Amazon.
That is the problem. But Amazon turned up at our house today, and it was like an Amazon distribution point for a short period of time in our house.
Yeah, it's a thought. I mean, it is what it is, I guess. It's not very interesting. You've got Beats branded cables to go with your Beats branded headphones to stream your Beats spot streaming service with, I suppose. I don't know. But, good cables are worth spending the money on. They last a bit longer, or they're less likely to end up as e-waste. If you need it, I guess you need it. But we all know that a cheap cable to transmit power or audio is the same as an expensive cable to transmit audio or power, unless it's a Thunderbolt 4 or 5 cable, obviously. But you can't tell that by looking at these cables. All you know is they've got Beats logos on them. It
does kind of show what a slow month we're having there, right?
That we're talking about cables in the podcast, yeah.
100%. It's absolutely bonkers, isn't it?
If this is short today, this is why we're reduced to talking about cables.
Bad days.
It is what it is. Moving on, another story, and this should probably have gone in follow-up now I think about it, but apparently Apple has been barred from taking part in the Google Antitrust trial. This was already hinted at. We know the Department of Justice in America is going to break up Google in some way, but I suspect Apple were hoping to take the stand and say how important it is to their business that they get paid $20 billion a year by Google, but they've been barred from taking part in the court case.
It's going to be interesting, isn't it? This whole thing just blows my mind. Like, what are they going to do? What, you know what I mean? How are they going to break up Google? What are the implications? We kind of think it's going to be good, but is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? We just don't know. It's super interesting.
Well, we thought Microsoft was going to get broken up at one point, and it didn't actually happen. They got what amounted to a slap on the wrist, really. So I won't believe it till I see it.
Yeah, I would concur with that statement. Yeah, won't believe it till we see it.
Yep, exactly. Moving on, and in news I never thought would happen, apparently Apple is thinking about spending up to $1 billion on NVIDIA servers for AI. Do you remember when Apple fell out with NVIDIA?
Yes, I do remember when Apple fell out with NVIDIA, and they haven't been in their PCs ever since. So it's now interesting that the flip has flopped because they've got to go back, haven't they? So yeah, interesting. But I guess it's a different world we're in now, and NVIDIA probably will take Apple's bucks, because why wouldn't they?
Well, why wouldn't they? I mean, so the history on this is NVIDIA. I can't remember exactly what they did to annoy Apple. They wouldn't give them an exclusive deal or something. I mean, I may be making that up, but there was a time you could buy in your Mac Pro, and actually, I think iMacs may have had them at one point. Once upon a time.
I think even laptops.
Yeah, you could get NVIDIA chips inside of Mac equipment, and then all of a sudden they had a falling out, and you only ever got ATI, either embedded graphics or dedicated graphics cards. The Mac Pro before this one, the last Intel Mac Pro being an example, you could only get ATI chips that would work in that for the Mac operating system, at least. I think people managed to hack NVIDIA ones to work inside of it. They didn't spend any more money on NVIDIA, even though for a long time NVIDIA was clearly the market leader when it came to 3D graphics. This is a big deal that Apple are going to go and spend a bunch of money on NVIDIA servers to up the game. And that, I think, reflects how seriously they've failed in the whole AI piece, is that they're actually having to turn their back on something like a long-standing policy of not working with NVIDIA to do this. I mean, $1 billion worth of servers is nothing to Apple, and probably not that much to NVIDIA these days, but it shows what their intent.
It does show their intent, and Apple are behind, aren't they? They're going to be doing this stuff. Interesting, they're not using a bunch of Mac Studios or Mac Pros, but they're buying NVIDIA stuff and using their tech. You'd have thought anything Apple would do would be engineered to run on their chips, but obviously not in this scenario.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one, isn't it? You think you'd want Apple Silicon for this, but clearly Apple Silicon's not good enough for this.
Yeah, but I guess we just don't know what they're doing, and are they trying to use, maybe some tools already out there, or work with a third party that they've got an exclusivity for, or a contract with confidentiality. So maybe they've bought some off the shelf and it works best on an NVIDIA chipset. We just don't know enough detail around it.
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one, really. But I guess time will tell as to whether, if we suddenly see a bump in Apple's AI abilities, it's probably because of all these servers they've been buying.
It could well be. Maybe that's how they're going to speed up Siri.
I don't think at this stage anything's going to speed up Siri.
It doesn't matter how quick it is if it doesn't know the right answer.
Yeah, it's absolute rubbish.
Agreed.
Absolute rubbish. I think that's it for the news and the follow-up. Should we do Car Corner?
Let's do Car Corner. You've got some Car Corner follow-up, I think.
I was hoping to show this in the browser, but I can't get Safari to play a game with dragging a PNG into the browser. Who knew that it would have such problems with it? I'll have one more go. No, it's not having it. I got my Apple Car key working in Apple Wallet. Yay!
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
It was much harder than it had to be. I think I talked last week about the troubles I was having with getting it. It's very different to the Tesla. Tesla didn't work like this. You entered your Tesla, you had your phone with you. I think it worked off some combination of the Bluetooth MAC address plus being authorized to know the phone or something like that.
Tesla's was different, wasn't it? I think Tesla do it all within their app. They're not trying to play with the Apple Wallet app, and I think that's the big difference.
No, and I didn't need to have anything open or anything with Tesla. I could just get in the car and drive away once it had been authenticated. And to authenticate it, you had to have the original car key card inside of a particular space in the car to do it, and then you'd go. With Volvo, it gets added to Apple Wallet, which you're more familiar with BMW, who have the same sort of thing.
Yep, I've got it on my BMW. I've been using it for the last 3.5 years.
So it obviously works reasonably well. It was news to me. I'm going to prove to the viewers of the YouTube video at least that it's there. So there you go, Volvo. You can see it on the webcam there. Quite interesting. Much harder to get working than it should have been. Some people on the internet, it worked for them instantly once the software update was there. For me, I actually had to delete my Volvo ID and re-add my Volvo ID, not to the car, but via a web browser, which caused all manner of issues with the car, deleting the driving log and all sorts of bits and pieces. Some people on the internet had even more trouble with that if they had subscriptions to like Volvo charging services and all sorts of things, they all went away. So I was very tentative to do it. It's a bit like signing out of your iCloud and back in again. You really don't know what the impact is going to be.
Yeah, it sounds a bit messy. I've got to give my BMW back soon, and I'm going to have to erase it, I guess, and take my name and bits off of it. I haven't tried that yet.
Yeah, it's really weird that. And when I was reading, I thought maybe it's because it wasn't a brand new one I bought. Maybe it was remnants of the old owner that were in there or something that was causing a problem. But anyway, as a last resort, I tried this, just delete and re-add your Volvo ID using the same email address. It worked instantly. I got in the car, I got a pairing code, I put it in. It went, here you go. I've created a digital key for you. It's in your wallet. Do you want me to put it in your Apple Watch as well?
That's quite cool.
which was quite cool. I was able to share it, so my wife is able to use the same sort of thing, and it works really well. If I even look at the car when I'm near it, I see it unlock. You know, if I walk past it wearing my watch, it unlocks. It locks again really quickly afterwards, but it actually works better than the digital key fob that came with the car so far. But yeah, I'm really pleased. I'm finally able to use a feature of the car.
That is good news. And if anybody's got one of these, I'd recommend you go into the wallet app. You click on the three dots in the top. You go to options, and you can turn on express mode, so you don't need to take your phone out your pocket. And yeah, you can share the key, so you can actually send the key to your children on their iPhones, and then you can change it though, so they can just unlock the car. And I've done that with mine. Yours sounds better than mine, I think, because you've got the wideband version, so you don't need to actually hold the phone next to it. I do on mine because it's a few years older. I actually have to hold the phone just up to the door, but I don't need to look at it because I've got express mode turned on. But I think it's quite cool tech, and in 3.5 years, I've never used my actual car keys that came with my car.
Fair enough. So I will report back on how well it's going and whether it leaves me stranded somewhere someday, but hopefully not.
Like I say, I hope not. I've used it for a long time. For a while, I did take a spare key with me, but then I got so confident with it, I've not bothered.
Yep, and I was the same with the Tesla at the end. I didn't carry the key cards with me at any point. I just relied on the phone, although that seemed to be madness. So the occasional person got completely locked out of their car. I'm really glad I don't drive a Tesla anymore, I got to say, based on some of the reports I see in America. Yesterday, it was National Day of Tesla protests across the world. There were 10 major protests around the world about Tesla. Lots more in America, but The Verge covered a thing in London. There was one in Denmark. There was several in America, New York and Chicago and other places. Some Tesla showrooms were clearing all the Teslas out of their showrooms in case they got set on fire. It was incredible.
It's not a good look for a brand, like International Tesla Protest Day. Like, it's not a good thing, is it?
And again, the American government, or at least Donald Trump, has said that if he sees damage to Tesla cars, he might designate you a domestic terrorist for attacking the Tesla car brand.
Is this the world we live in now?
This is the world we live in. Should we talk about something more fun?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do media. So I am continuing still my Bond rewatch, and I think you're going to get updates for this as I continue through the series, and I've got as far as On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is the first film without Sean Connery. It's George Lazenby that was in this one. The rest of the cast is the same, the producers, the music, everything. It is an official Bond film. I think it's from 1969. I think this film has the best music of any Bond film, and that might be a controversial statement, but I think it's terrific.
I think it's a good film on the whole. I actually quite like this film. I'm surprised the popcorn meter is down at 64%, which I don't think I agree with. But it's a good film, and this actually came up in my Friday night quiz that I was doing to raise funds for a school. There was a picture of George Lazenby, and obviously you've got to work out which film it is and who the actor is, and bang, straight in there. I knew that.
Yep, George Lazenby only there for one Bond film, allegedly because he slept his way through the cast and then he slept his way through the crew, so they didn't invite him back.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
is he a method actor?
I think he might have been. He was a watch model. I think he was an Australian model who just had the brass neck to walk up and apply for the audition and got it. And I think he does a cracking job as Bond. Actually, he's got just the right amount of swagger. Yeah,
I think that's fair. I actually quite enjoyed the film. Yeah, shame he didn't come back and do more, but I can understand given what you've just said.
I think I genuinely think he was a good Bond, and it was a good film. Amazing supporting turn by Diana Rigg as what turns out to be Bond's wife, and Telly Savalas as Blofeld, who's Kojak, and of course other things as well. It's a great film. Great skiing sequences. A lot of the stunts are really well done, particularly the bit on the bobsleigh where they're holding, one of the riders of the bobsleigh's head up against the ice wall as it's going by, and you think they did that once upon a time. I mean, as with all the 60s Bond films, the reverse screen stuff where you see the actors and they're projecting something behind them is very out of scale, but I can live with that. I just think it's a cracking film with a great soundtrack. I mean, you've got All the Time in the World by Satya, and then you've got that sort of Bond theme that runs through it, and it's terrific.
Yep, that's a good film. And you don't want them to go and fix any of that stuff, I think, with CGI these days. So I should go back and watch it. And obviously, it's 1969, so CGI was not a thing.
And it's amazing they knocked out 5 films in the space of about 6 years.
Yeah, because obviously the pace has slowed down ever since then.
Yeah, we get Connery back for the next one, and You Only Live Twice. Diamonds Are Forever, and then I'm on to Roger Moore.
Good theme tune.
Second thing I've been watching, a bit of television. I think I talked about it last week. Daredevil Born Again on Disney+. This is a sequel, a follow-up to the original Daredevil Netflix shows. It's really good. I think the critic and audience scores is bearing this out. This is a real return to form and probably the best Marvel television we've had so far. So I like Charlie Cox, who plays this. There's a great supporting cast, and I think if you're at all interested in this, it's a great place to start.
I am slightly interested in it, but I'm not a big Marvel person. I think we've learned that, so I'm not even going to suggest I might even watch it.
Fair enough. Tell us about the studio.
So I have watched a bit of the studio. It's on Apple TV Plus. It's written by Seth Rogen, I think developed by him. He's in it. He's directed it. He's done a bit of everything for it, and a load of other people. I don't know what to say about it, but for me, it got 95% on the Rotten Tomatoes reviewer score, which I don't agree with. 68% on the popcorn meter, which I possibly do agree with. I don't know. It's just all seemed a bit obvious what they're trying to do with it. And for some reason, they do really long takes, which normally I quite like it when they do a really long take and it works. But every take is just a really long take and it just gets a little frustrating. It doesn't become, oh, look, that take was really long. It was quite cool that they shot a huge scene and it lasted 2 minutes. But everyone's like that. And I don't think it really works because I think they've overplayed it. So I got about halfway through the first episode and I think I'm done with it, sadly, because I wanted it to be good. I quite like Seth Rogen, actually. I think he's quite good. I very much enjoyed him in Dumb Money. But yeah, not for me, sadly.
That surprises me, because I haven't heard anything bad about this at all. Everything I've read, the Guardian's review of this was fawning, frankly. It was like they'd have given it 99% as critics, I think.
But I think that goes with the values you're seeing there. 95% of reviewers love it. Maybe they do like all the long shots. I just found they overused it and they only scored 68% on the popcorn meter. So it's just not for me. You might enjoy it. I don't want to taint you too much. So it'd be interesting if you watch a little bit of it and see what your take is. But I think there's better TV I could invest my time in.
Fair enough. Severance.
So I have gone back and I'm halfway through season 1 of Severance. So I've done what I said I was going to do. And I'm really enjoying it. And I remembered it actually was quite good at prompting me of, oh yeah, I remember what was going on here. Because when season 2 of Severance came out, which you very much enjoyed, and I said, I don't think I can remember enough of season 1. And I think I was right. I did need to go back, and I'm glad I've spent the time going back to rewatch season 1. Largely while I've been running on my treadmill with my Garmin on, but I'm halfway through it, so I've got the other half to go, and I am quite looking forward to watching the other half. I actually want to put it on and enjoy it and soak it up. So yeah, would recommend it if anybody hasn't gone back and seen season 1. Do it. It is good. It's very well done, and it's an odd film, isn't it? It's got a very unique style around how they film it and the actors and the pace, and once you start getting into it, it's quite cool because to begin with, you're like, this is all a bit odd. Everybody's a bit quiet and it's very slow and everything's very blank, but actually when you start getting into the Severance universe, it's quite cool. It's quite there's a look to it, I think, is where I'm going. Yeah,
it's definitely got a vibe, as my children would probably say, but I like it. I like the sort of division between the innies and the outies and the sort of starkness of the interior corporate world versus the rawness of the exterior world and how the characters change depending on what sort of scenarios you see them in and as they build the world, and sort of the chilling effect of both sides, both the real world and the interior side. Season 1 is a great thing, and I need to go back and rewatch it myself, actually. But no, it's a terrific show.
Yeah, and whoever's done all the location and the scenes, they deserve a medal, an Oscar, BAFTA. Give them all the awards. I think it's a really good look that they've got, and I am very much enjoying it.
Fair enough. A Complete Unknown. Is this the Bob Dylan thing?
This is the Bob Dylan film with Timothy Chalamet. I'm going to mess his name up.
Chalamet,
who played Wonka. He's fantastic in it. It's a film all about Bob Dylan, about a period of Bob Dylan's life, from being from nothing to being exceptionally famous and starting to move into playing electric guitar after obviously being on an acoustic. It's fantastic. And I can see why Ed Norton was up for an Oscar for supporting actor, because he plays a great character and it looks very un-Ed Norton-like to begin with. It's just a really good film. I quite like a bit of Bob Dylan music. That helped. But just really well done. It's available on Apple TV, iTunes to purchase. I don't know if it's on any streaming. I got it on there, but it's fantastic. It's just a really good film. It looks beautiful, and to me, they seem to capture the era very well. I assume the cars were the right cars for that era in America. I wouldn't know, obviously, but just really good and interesting. The popcorn meter is at 95%, which I would go along with. I think it's a really good film. I would happily watch it again. Led led quite an interesting life and became very famous. And I think one of his albums is still like one of the best-selling albums ever, kind of thing. So yeah, fantastic. So would recommend some great tunes.
And Elle Fanning as well from The Great, who is a terrific actress.
Yeah, I recognise her name, but I can't think where I've seen her in things. But the whole cast I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, I would check this out. I mean, I sort of blow hot and cold on Dylan. I occasionally think he's written some amazing music. I occasionally think he's very pretentious, might be the word I'm looking for.
I think that's fair. I wouldn't disagree with that. I like some of his songs. I don't like all of it. But I just thought the film was very good. It was good entertainment, and it was just interesting to know a bit more about his world.
Fair enough. I've chucked one more in that I watched 2 episodes of last night. It's on Disney Plus. It's called Paradise. Stars James Marsden is probably the actor you'd know best from this, from Enchanted and Cyclops and X-Men and things like that. As the president,
or the Sonic films. Come on.
I haven't seen the Sonic films. That means nothing to me.
That's where I recognise him from, because my children watch the Sonic films.
He's also in Westworld. He plays one of the actors in the first season of Westworld. One of the characters, I should say. He's excellent. It's quite an interesting concept. It's not what you think it's going to be. It starts out as like the Secret Service protection detail for the President of the United States of America in a very sort of idyllic-looking town. And I don't really want to give any spoilers away because there's a big cliffhanger at the end of the first episode. But yeah, pretty good. Decent start. Interesting premise. Quite like the idea. Very in keeping with our times, I think. I've enjoyed the first two episodes, and I'll keep it going.
Okay, and it's on Disney Plus, so that's cool. I might take a look.
Disney Plus might be worth checking out.
Fantastic. Should we do some games?
Let's do some games. So I'm going to let you talk about the first one because you're the Gran Turismo fan in the room.
I am a Gran Turismo fan. I've not played much Gran Turismo recently, but they have and continue to keep updating. So they've done more work on their AI ML piece, which is fantastic. They released it, I think it was back in 22. And it's been really good. It's called Sophie. And it was just really good because you could play against different AI drivers, and it was generally quite challenging. And there were various grades. You could play against the novice, the medium, the expert, the real professional expert, and it was hard because they'd take every corner perfectly and stuff. But it was great how they gradiated it, so you weren't just playing against the best bots the whole time. But basically, they've upgraded it all in the latest update. So there's more tracks, which is great. And they must be investing a small fortune in this game, because I think, how many times have I come on this podcast and gone, there's another update out for GT, it's great, there's a track, there's some cars. They just keep adding and adding, and I think it is fantastic. But Sophie can beat humans. I can't remember the stat, I'm just looking here. Sophie beat the humans by 104 races to 52 in a match, so it shows how good they are at racing. It is fantastic. And like I said, if you want a real challenge, you just try and follow the expert car and try and just keep up with it. It's quite a skill. So I think it's cool.
I do too. I had a very quick shot of Gran Turismo just before we started the podcast, just to see if I could see it, and I didn't manage to land in the Sophie world. I think it's quite interesting. You get emojis above the cars, so the AI tells you how it's feeling as you're sort of racing against them. And that stat you put out of 104 races to 52 was in 2021, so presumably the AI's got better since then. This is interesting, isn't it? I wonder what the sort of payback for Sony is on this. Sony make a car now. They make the Afeela in combination with Honda. Is it Honda? I think it's Honda. Surely having clever AI from something you've trained in automotive space against lots of actual human beings may actually be quite valuable if you're trying to build in collision avoidance and all sorts of things into your car. There's probably some sort of payback here for Sony.
Yeah, you'd have thought. You've got to assume there's an overlap there. And like you said there's like an emoji above the car of their face. And, if you bump into them, the face gets a bit angrier. You know what I mean? If they overtake you, they're a bit happier. They've obviously trying to reflect real human emotions in how they drive and stuff. It's just really cool how they do it, but it is hard. If you think you're a good racer, race against one of these, it's really well done.
I just want to point out the most interesting thing about this update has been they've added the Renault Kangoo as a potential car you can drive.
I did see the Renault Kangoo make an appearance, and they do put some odd cars in every now and again. I think it's quite cool.
It's a bit of an odd choice, the Renault Kangoo. I always think it looks like some sort of bread van. Also the same car as a Citroen Berlingo and some Vauxhall that I can't remember.
Yeah, they all share the same sort of wheelbase, don't they?
Same platform. A very rapid run through some games I picked up in the Steam sale. if that's of interest. So first up, diplomacy is not an option, which is kind of a city builder in the sense of Command and Conquer, one of those where you place buildings, but the idea is you're trying to defend against a horde. As you can see in the video, the horde gets quite big. So as you build your defenses, you really need to be careful with what it is you do. I haven't had a huge amount of chance to try it, but I've been really impressed with it so far. And as much as you get a lot of things on screen at one time that you've got to try and manage. So yeah, interesting little game. Wasn't very expensive. I think it was £12.50. I picked it up on Steam. It's Windows compatible only, I think, at this point. Works on Linux too. Yeah,
it's quite interesting, isn't it? You've not only got to build a city, but also try and save the city from a mass horde of an army coming to get you. So it's quite cool.
Yeah, and there's some interesting mechanics in it as well. Like you can have fishermen, but there's only a finite amount of fish in the pond. So you've got to balance where your food sources come from. You've got to balance your forests if you're going to cut them down, as well as defending against this horde. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting concept, and it's got quite a unique sort of graphical style. I really quite like it.
Yeah, it's quite a cool style. I like that.
So I haven't had a lot of time to play on it because I also bought 2 other games while I was at it. I bought Nordhold, which, if you like a tower defense game like a Kingdom Rush or something like that, is like a pretty version of one of them. There's a bit of resource management in it as well, but guys go from one side of the screen to the other. You've got to build your building up at the same time, your sort of town up at the same time to improve your defenses. It was relatively cheap, I think. I got it as part of the deal. Buying Nordhold and and Diplomacy is not an option together gave me a discount. I think it was £20 for both of them. This one is Mac compatible. If you like a bit of tower defense with a bit of extra management, this is it's a deeper game than I thought it was going to be when I picked it up.
Yeah, you can see how it might escalate quite quickly. I guess it looks quite cool. I do like a tower defense game. I was always gutted that Field Runners died on the iPhone at some point because that was a fantastic game.
It was. And then last but not least, I picked up Ixion, and I've actually spent the most amount of time on Ixion. If you, again, one of those sort of resource management games where you need to build woodcutters' huts and you need to make sure your fishermen are working and all that kind of stuff, that's quite a well understood genre, real-time strategy genre at this time, and then defend against it. This is more of a science fiction concept where Earth is dying, you're on a spaceship, you get cast out into the solar system, and you need to manage very finite resources and balance the fact that you're on a ship that decays over time with your power requirements, with feeding your population inside, exploring the galaxy enough to find resources. It's really quite an interesting game that's really quite well done. I'm very early on it at the moment, but I've probably spent a couple of hours already, certainly more than the other 2 games I've bought. It looks beautiful. They've done a fantastic job of bringing sort of the world to life of late stage humanity and what might happen if you're forced to go out into the solar system with limited resources. Good music, nice graphics, runs very, very well on my fairly limited gaming PC at this point. Good game.
Yeah, I've not heard of that one. It's quite an interesting concept, like you say. You've got finite resources. You're on a decaying ship and you've got to maintain it and build it out. It's quite cool.
Yeah, it is good. So it's also for sale on Steam at the moment at 60% off. I picked it up for £11.80, so it felt like a bit of a bargain because it was one I was looking at right at the beginning. The nice thing about looking at the Steam website is you get some sort of moving videos of what's going on with it. And as you're sort of managing your space station, you've got like a zoomed-in view of the current area you're working with. You've got the external part of the ship, and then you've got the solar system you're in at any one time. And you've got to manage all sort of 3 levels of that. If you start running out of power, you might need more solar panels. If your population is starving, you might need more insect farms inside. All this kind of stuff. It's really quite a clever. And as you can see, the graphics are beautiful.
Yeah, it's a very good looking game, to be fair.
So I'd recommend, if you've got £11.80 and the means to run it, a Windows machine or at least a Proton emulated Linux machine, it's not a bad little investment if you like this kind of thing.
That's good. I like city world building games, which I think we're going to come on to next.
Well, you can tell us all about Settlements Rising.
Yeah, so I did also go to the Steam sale and I just picked this up. It's £8.70, so it's not a lot of money for this one. And it's quite cool. You build a settlement. It's a bit slow going to begin with, and there you are starting out and you've got to cut down trees and you've got to have fishermen and do all of that good stuff. And basically you just go through time. Like I say, for me, I found it a little bit slow to begin with, but it did pick up pace and you've got to meet the demands. You've got to make sure you can make clothes for people. You've got to make sure you've got food to feed them, and you've got meat, and you've got all the services they want, and enough houses for them, your settlers to live in. But it was just quite well done. Again, interesting art style, I think, to be fair, that looked pretty good. It ran really well for me on my, I say so-called gaming computer. It's quite a few years old, but just quite nice just to play something different, I think, for not a lot of money, and it kept me entertained for a few hours. So I would recommend. It'll be interesting to see what they bring out in further patches. They can bring out bridges, I believe, and you can see here you can build walls and what have you.
It's telling that neither of us are talking about Civilization 7 at this point, which is a similar style of game to the ones we talked
I need
about.
to circle back to that, I think, because there have been some patches released which have dealt with, I think, a few issues. I just fancied something one night, though, just to wallow away a few hours, and this just took my fancy.
Yeah, that's the reason I picked up Nordhold, because I thought if I've only got 20 minutes to spend, I don't want to get totally into a deeper game like Ixion or Civ 7.
That I think is the one thing against Civ 7 is if you're really going to play it, you're going to sink half a day into it, and you need to have that time in front of you to be able to do that.
Speaking about time in front of you, Formula 1 2025.
I didn't realise this was out for pre-order, but you can pre-order Formula 1 2025. I have done. There is a discount on it. I've done it on the PlayStation. And it's apparently the 13th time that Lewis Hamilton has been on the front cover of it, which is a record apparently. So there you go. And it's obviously he's in Ferrari red. But I have plumped for it this year because all the teams have changed around a bit. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to treat myself. So I've gone and got it.
My scepticism of this kind of game, isn't it just F1 24 with different paint?
Generally, sometimes there is a bit of a story if you want to play the story mode, but I just wanted to have a go. Leave me alone. I like my Formula 1.
But you've got Gran Turismo, man. Come on.
I've got Gran Turismo. I just fancy something else. And Gran Turismo hasn't got all the F1 tracks. I do like racing some of the F1 tracks just to get an appreciation for it when I watch the race.
I've talked about this before. I tend to prefer the slower things in a Formula 1 car. I genuinely would rather race around in a Golf GTI or something like that than a Formula 1 car.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you because I don't think I've got the reactions for it. In the normal GT game, the faster cars are less exciting sometimes because you've got to be so pin sharp with your reactions.
Yeah, that's what puts me off. Should we do a main show?
Yep, let's do it.
So only one topic really this week, and WWDC was announced. So WWDC is the Worldwide Developer Conference. This will be our third time of covering it on this podcast. It's going to be the week of June the 9th, so not very far away really. It's announced on time. It's going to be an in-person event in California, should you choose to go and should you win the lottery. But simulcast all around the world, so we can all watch it live at the same time. There's usually a bit of analysis around what the colours mean when they announce it. It's just multicolour WWDC 25, with the 25 giving a slightly sort of glass effect, I'd say, sort of Vision OS kind of effect to it. And that's it, really. We can look forward to new versions of all the operating systems come June 9th.
Yeah, so not surprised they've launched it. It's similar sort of time in June, as you've said, and many people say this is the start of Apple's year, isn't it? This is when they announce what they're doing with the OSs for the next 12 months. There's a lot of speculation around what that's going to be. I don't like the logo because you've kind of got WW merged into, you've not got enough. If you scroll up slightly, you've not got enough W's. Do you see what I mean? You've got like a W and a V. I don't like the logo. I think that's bad. I like the colours. But yeah, it's going to be good. I always like WWDC because you get a keynote, you see what their direction of travel is going to be, and then, like an idiot, I normally download the OSs, install them, and then go, why is my battery dying? But they've been much better in recent years. And I've also put a link in the show notes because there is talk that we're going to get a new look and feel this year, and it's going to be more of a glass look to mimic what's on Vision OS. So it's going to be interesting to see if they do that because they've not really refreshed the look of our iPhones since iOS 7, which is obviously over 10 years ago now. So it'll be interesting to see what they actually do if they are going to do this, like I say, glass look, because it sounds quite cool to me. I quite fancy a refresh my phone. I quite like it when they update the visuals. But I also worry if they're going to update all the visuals, is it going to be buggy and laggy? And what's that world going to look like? So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
I mean, I guess my biggest concern is they're still having this as a live event. And I mean, no, well, maybe I do mean, I don't know what I mean. It's a consideration for people entering the United States at this point, that lots of Apple's developers are not white and not straight and not male.
And nor should they be. I think we are both in agreement there. You should be you.
Absolutely. None of these things should have any bearing on your ability to develop or go to a country to attend something.
Agreed.
But given the United Kingdom, Germany, France, and many other countries, Canada, have said if you're not one of those things, you probably shouldn't be entering the United States. This is a concern for Apple's developer community, who very much look forward to this time of the year. As you've said, it's one of the most important times on the calendar. And this now has become a consideration for whether they should apply for the lottery to join this. And I think maybe this year they should have just gone entirely online only and just stepped past this particular thing.
Yeah, or have more localized events, because they've done that before here in the UK at their head office. I don't know what that would look like. Or even in shops, where they've got the ability, go, look, we're going to allow you to come watch the thing and hang out with other developers. You need to be a registered developer. Come to some of our shops and do that. Make more of a localized splash. Also do wonders for their carbon initiative of, reducing the amount, I know it's indirect carbon, but of people traveling all the way to America to go to an event when they could do it more locally, and also hook up with other developers. They should be trying to foster that developer community.
Yep, I agree. So I'm not saying, of course, it's the United States government's prerogative to put whatever entry restrictions they choose on anybody. It's their country. But, it's just a consideration for Apple. So it's just a thing that occurred to me, really, when this announcement came out. Then to turn to the actual thing itself, that I think their attitude towards developers has been shifting over a long period of time. And when we talked about this last year, we were saying things like, do you think they're going to recognize the problems they've got in the EU? Are they going to talk about the marketplaces? Are they going to talk about pushback? And we all got distracted with the new software, and we all got distracted with Vision OS, and we got distracted with Apple Vision Pro, and kind of didn't deal with that directly. We obviously continued to talk about it in the podcast. The EU certainly didn't forget about it, as we've already talked about here. So I think there's a lot of changes in the developer community for Apple where there might not be quite as much hunger for what their fresh coat of paint on the operating system would have been as once there might have been. I definitely think we have chilled slightly on the company because of the way that they've been acting. Steve Troughton-Smith has obviously potentially changed his phone entirely, and he's just one of many that, even on very Apple-focused podcasts like ours, you're beginning to hear people have doubts about what happens next in the community. And Apple have got to walk a line of giving people what they want, not breaking everything and putting them off. But the vast majority of who their customers are, people who go and buy their phones, can be really badly put off by these kinds of changes. So even if it is just a coat of paint and shift an icon around, I remember the backlash of iOS 7, and your mum, your wife, isn't going to respond the same way to, oh, it's all right, it just looks a bit different. It performs the same way. To the same way that a developer might once have had, and we might once have had, that enthusiasm to just dive in. Because cool operating systems are cool. OS 10 looked so much better than what Windows did back in the day. That was one of the reasons I jumped over. I mean, I was slightly there before. I joined the Mac on macOS 8.5. I could see the benefits of it even then, pre-Windows 2000, mind. But OS 10 was just such a quantum leap in a user interface that I wanted to use it. The OS you could lick is what they used to say. But it did look good enough to lick, and it did perform that much better than what came before. And it was harder to use than Windows because the apps weren't there. But you stuck by it, and I think they had that sort of committed developer community that brought them with it. And I just worry a lot of that has gone away for the passionate developer community. What do you think?
Yeah, you used to have a lot of very loyal Mac platform people, whether it was consumers or developers alike, and they wanted to make a real Mac app. And you could tell a Mac app, it was really nicely crafted and it was pixel perfect. And actually, I think some of the stuff they've done in more recent versions of macOS have gone away from that because the icons have got all flat and boring. We used to have beautiful, really realistic icons, and now we haven't. I go and look at people's Windows 11 devices and it's like, oh man, all your icons aren't just a square with some rounded corners on it, and they look so much better. Or they're not just a square, like I'm looking at the iPhone mirroring icon, it's a grey square with an iPhone in it. Like, come on, Apple, you can do way better than this. So you are right, though. I think they have squandered developer relations. They've squandered also what they've announced last year and failed to deliver spectacularly this year with all the AI initiatives that they announced, and they haven't really delivered them. And what they have delivered is a subpar at best. So it's going to be interesting this year. I think there's the room. They need to read the room a bit differently, but Apple historically doesn't read the room and will just plow on as it does plow on. So I think, yeah, I'm excited to see it, but I'm probably less excited this year than I have been for a long time, sadly.
Just as you were talking there, other desktop environments are available other than Windows and Mac OS. So here's an example of the refreshed icons that's coming in GNOME 48 this month. They're quite interesting looking things. They say what they want to do. They're not all just the same shape. You know, I don't know what IOTAS does, but I'm guessing it's a diary app based on that. I think the world has changed a little bit since Apple were regarded as the design maestros. You know, there was a perfect confluence between Johnny Ive, what he was doing in hardware, plus what the software team were doing when they came from Next. You know, those things worked very harmoniously, and I think what we've seen recently with Apple is an iOSification of all the other operating systems. iPad OS, I won't get into that, but I think it could have become its own thing in one world once upon a time, where it could have become a very dynamic and interesting thing with its own design language. Let the form follow the device, the way Mac OS used to be, but this sort of shoving them all into the same box has led to what you've said there, a very generic experience where they don't let the devices be true to themselves.
Yeah, I think it's frustrating. And what I hate about some of the icons is when you just get something inside a coloured box, and it's like you've just phoned it in, and I find it really frustrating. Like the news icon, it's some sort of N in a coloured box, like I said, the iPhone in a grey box. And what worries me slightly, if we're going to then bring the Vision OS look across everything, is I think it's going to look the same, but something's going to interact with my fingers. Someone's going to use a mouse and a keyboard. Obviously, Vision OS, you're going to use your face a lot more, and your eyes. I'm not sure about it all. I wonder if they've tried to unify too much. I don't know.
So I'm going to try and inject a bit of positivity. That's all of our negativity about it.
Yeah,
but in the interest of having occasionally a positive podcast, I think they maybe do have an opportunity if they did speak to developers' concerns about these things. You know, even if all they said was, "We hear you,"
Yeah.
you know, we
listen
do,
to the room.
we do appreciate that Vision OS didn't appeal to all of you because the device was too expensive. You're not sure if the time you're going to invest in it is going to be worth it because if we're going to release it. You know, we're taking a look at the App Store team to see how things are released. We're speaking to the EU about, you know, being more closely aligned with what the organizations want. You know, all those kinds of things could potentially set developers up. You know, we're going to look at our App Store fees, the 30%, the 20%. We're going to talk to Netflix and make that work. We're going to talk to Amazon, and so you can buy, you know, books directly on the device. All those things that they could give a little bit and then take a mile, which is what they do. But I think there is an opportunity for them here to actually get some of that goodwill back, because we all want to like our favorite sports team, don't we? We want to appreciate that. Go back to the glory days of where you felt like you were on the right side of the technology platform with a company that was walking the walk and talking the talk. They were more private. They were trying to do the best thing they were saying they were trying to do the best thing for the environment while still making all of the money. But they've slipped so far from that I want them to give us that positive effect as developers and consumers of the devices and platforms.
Yeah, we do need them to be where they used to be, I think, where they are listening a little bit more to the room and trying to do things for the greater good, not just for their good. And I think that's the problem, isn't it? So I'm hoping they do, because I love using my Mac. I do like using my iPhone, my iPad. I love my devices. But I just want them to get back to some of their foundations where they were really embracing the developer community and way more than what Microsoft used to, and it was great. And let's have people make proper Mac apps again and proper platform specific apps and do that, I think. But it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it because I always enjoy watching the stream and seeing what new stuff we get. And generally, we get to play with some new software, and it costs us no money, which is always nice to watch an event where you haven't actually got to plump down £1,000 to get a new device. So I'm looking forward to that piece.
I guess we'll see. And then the hardware will come later, but you always get clues in the software as to what hardware. So we are expecting ultimately foldable iPhones and things like that. Presumably the user interfaces will need to change a little bit. So maybe we'll start seeing some inclination about that. But I guess we'll see. I mean, I'm reserving judgment. I've switched off Apple Intelligence. I always say I'm not going to install the beta on my phone, and then I always install the beta on my phone, as do you. I've been more reserved about installing it on my Macs recently, but mostly because of this podcast. But I guess we'll see. So I'm going to be cautiously optimistic that hopefully they'll start doing the right thing. But the more reserved part of my brain says they haven't done that the last couple of years, so I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think we'll just have to wait and see. But it's good. Well, and look, it's also good that Apple's maintaining their timetable, I think, because, should they have pushed it out or should they be doing a casual update, that's a lot more bug fix. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. But I am looking forward to the event. I think it's always nice to see some new stuff.
See, you've made me now go back a little bit because I'm thinking if their focus is once again on AI, they're going to lose the room. They need to address why that's been such a show.
They need to face into it or deal with it beforehand. If they don't want to deal with it on the day and have a buzzkill, they need to deal with it beforehand. So it's going to be interesting to see what they clear off the plate between now and then.
Yeah, there is a bit to clear, isn't there? Be interesting. Anyway, I think that's probably it for WWDC. Should we do an app of the week?
I don't think there's much to talk about at the moment because we just don't know. So we'll probably get some rumours near at the time, won't we?
And we'll get some accessibility stuff because they always push the accessibility stuff out before the actual event, don't they? They've done that the last few years with sort of not visual intelligence, but describing a scene seen by the camera for people who are hard of vision. Visually challenged is maybe what I should have said more appropriately, but there we are. App of the week.
Yeah, let's do app of the week.
App of the week, LibreOffice. I talked before about how Microsoft are pushing their subscriptions up. For some people, Pages isn't good enough, particularly if you're on platforms and you want to be a bit more cross-platform compatible. I've been trying LibreOffice out on a couple of my machines because I don't like some of the Copilot stuff that's been forced down my neck at work. I don't like some of the other changes that have come along as part of it. So why not download a completely open source Office suite, as we've already talked about? The United Nations endorse it, so why not check it out? It's been around a long time. LibreOffice used to be called Free Office? Star Office, possibly. I forget.
Yeah, I don't remember. LibreOffice has been around a long time. I mean, they've got 25 versions of it, so it's clearly been around a few years.
It has been around a few years. It's a pretty good package, and I've been messing around with the word processor mostly. It does all the reviewing and stuff that you'd expect to do from a modern thing these days. It supports all the formatting options. You can choose whether you want an old-fashioned just menued interface in the way Word used to be, or the more modern Microsoft sort of style tabbed interface. I quite like the fact they let you choose back and forth between those things. It contains a word processor, a spreadsheet, a presentation, and a database format that similar to Access, but not Access, and works cross-platform, which is possibly a bad thing because nobody should ever use Access, but it is what it is. What I found fascinating was the presentation part of it. Present is what it's called. Opens Keynote files. Who knew it could do that?
That's cool. That is cool. Because that is the problem, isn't it? If you want to use an Office piece of software, generally you need people to come with you, but if you can switch in between, that's what you need.
Yeah, it's quite a decent suite of apps, I've got to say, and comes with an equation manager as well. It's neat. You can set it as default to save files as in Word format. You don't need to use .odf files. You can save them as .powerpoint or .word or whatever, so it immediately makes you compatible. It does a great job of opening them. It's fairly seamless saving. If you use it on a Mac or Windows, all your fonts are already there. For Linux users, you can download Microsoft fonts if you want to be that sort of compatible, or use open source fonts. I've been really quite impressed with it, I got to say. It's a very solid Office suite, and I wonder what people really need of Microsoft Word or PowerPoint over and above this, really.
Yeah, I guess it's just the corporate one, and for a lot of corporations where they tag labels and what have you, whether that's part of it.
Tag labels.
You can mark a document as confidential and internal, and that security piece, and you can mark something as for public consumption, or as the whole integration with SharePoint and what they call zero labels. That's probably the one corporate tie-in that you really get. But I don't disagree with you. Companies could save themselves a fortune if they actually start moving away to software that's largely free, or that you pay a fraction if you're using it commercially, because the cost will never be anywhere near what Microsoft charge.
No, I know. And I think, again, for 80% of users, home users, all of them could use something like this, unless something super specific within Word or PowerPoint that you're looking for. But just the very fact you can default it to save to those Microsoft formats, I think gives people a lot of mileage that you're not doing something weird over here, and you can open it up. So I'd encourage you, even if you've got Office and Pages, check it out. You've got no harm is done by you checking out this alternative Office suite. LibreOffice, app of the week.
Yep, that's fair enough. It's a good one.
Thing of the week.
So my thing of the week I've done with something a bit weird this week. I've gone with eBay and post office. So I haven't used eBay in a long time. I haven't sold anything for ages, but I sold something last week. And I'm trying to have a bit of a clear out of old computer stuff and car stereos and what have you. And so I used eBay, and I found one to me that had something very similar to me. And I go, I want to sell something just like that. And you click the link, and then it pre-populates all the categories and everything for you. You set the price, upload your photos, put a bit of your description on, and then it says, do you want us to do the postage for you? Okay, do the postage. I assume I just have to go deal with that afterwards. Did all that, sold an item, and then Monday morning after the auction ended, I wrapped it all up, took it around the post office with a QR code and just gave it to them, and they said, yeah, it's all prepaid. Boom, sent it. It was with the person within 48 hours. I just thought the whole thing, they just removed all the friction for me, because I hate selling stuff on eBay, but they just made it so simple that I could list exactly what somebody else had, because I had the same make and model, and I could have all the postage prepaid, and literally the person just buys it, they paid for it, I just walk around the post office, it's done. What great use of tech. Just gave the person behind the counter a QR code and it was all bought and paid for. I just think the way eBay is linked up with our post office system here in the UK, I just thought it was fantastic. And just like I say, just remove that friction, and has actually inspired me to go and sell a few more things that I want to clear out the loft. So that was it.
I think they've had that a couple of years, man.
They quite possibly have. I try and avoid eBay at all costs. I just can't be fussed with it. But actually, if they've made that a bit easier, I'm probably more likely to want to use it. So I'm going to try a few more things with it.
Fair enough.
There you go.
Good shout. I think we can call that a show, Chris.
Yes, if anyone wants to get in contact, Rod is at g5maniac@mastodon.scot. He's also on Blue Sky, where he's at g5maniac.bsky.social. I'm at Mastodon, and I am at _CJP at mastodon.social. You can watch us on YouTube if you go to wakefromsleep.com and click on the YouTube link, or you can drop us an email, wakefromsleep@protonmail.com.
Talk to you next week, Chris.
Cheers, Rod.